Okay, so here we go. Let's start off by starting the database. I guess it doesn't matter where I am. We'll do sudo mongod. Okay. Oh, that didn't work. Looks like I might have starting sudo. It's already okay. Looks like it's already running. Okay, so we can start the client to connect to a database. So Mongo. Yeah, there we go. Once in there, we can show the databases that we already have, and there's quite a few. Let's create one for us to play around in this lecture. So we'll say use a whiteboard, and this will be CS. Wait, did we already did this? Huh? Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So let's just take a look at what we have so far. Looks like I misspelled it. Fix this in fall 2018. Show collections. Looks like we created a couple of students. So we say db.student.find. So it looks like we created two students. Right, so we created a username called Turin and a username called Nicola with the first name Nicola and Tesla. Just to point, right, so this was to point out the fact that there is no schema, right, that there is no particular structure to what is it that it allows us to insert into the collection. Not that you would do that, right? It's not the intent, even though it lets you. Right? It doesn't mean that you should. Typically, you would want to be consistent in the types of documents that you insert into a collection. It's just that it's not its responsibility to do the validation down here at the database level. Instead, we're going to be doing that at the application level. So also point out that these primary keys. They are for free, right? It's the database is going to create for us these unique identifiers that uniquely identify each one of these documents. You can retrieve the particular student using by providing as part of the finder method. You can provide a query. And say, well, I don't want all the students. I only want a particular student. So you can provide here as an argument. Can you see that? You can provide as an argument which student do you want by using the ID as a filter. ID, and then using the object ID to refer to any one of these. So for instance, if I want that one, I can copy that. I can paste it. Right, and that returns that one object, that one document. If it's too hard to read, you can append right next to it a pretty, which I misspelled. Now I can't read myself. Pretty. There we go. Well, right now it's kind of useless because it only has a username. But if it has multiple fields. For instance, if we use the second one over here, right, it puts each field in each line. You can also give it as a second argument to this finder method. You can give it a projection command that you can select which fields you want, just like you would do a select and then the fields that you want. Right here, you can list that. For instance, if I only want the username, I can say username 1, and it returns only the username. Plus, the underscore ID is always returned, even if I don't ask for it. I would have to specifically filter it out by saying underscore ID and then false. So now we're only given the username, right? Only that field, and then we can filter out the ones we don't want. You can also filter out by non-keys. Like, for instance, if you want the ones that have a particular username, find pretty For instance, I like to retrieve only the ones that has a particular username. Right, so you can filter out by username, the one whose username is Nicola. Right? Or a combination, like Nicola, and say that the last name is, and I misspell it, notice that it returns nothing, right? Because there's no match where you have a username and the last name with that garbage. Only if you have both with Tesla, then so it treats it as an and, right? So it pattern matches both fields or all the fields that you provide to pattern match and find the object that matches that query. If you want to have more specific Boolean operations, certainly you have those commands with and or and not and whatnot. All right, so let's focus on each one of these classes and see how we would model them. Let's start off with a section, just inserting a couple of sections in here. So first, let's insert this section CS. Copy. Paste. Yes. There we go. So insert it into section. Notice again, I didn't have to create the section at a table or collection. It created that one section. Let's create a couple more. Now it asks me every time I'm pasting something. It used to not ask me that. You know how to turn it off and then what is it? To confirm and paste. Really? Oh, jeez. I thought it was making it easier. No. Paste again. Mac OS. Making things easier. All right, so I've inserted those 4 sections. We can retrieve the sections, db.section.find. So those are the 4 sections we just created. If that's too hard to read, you can append a modifier. There's a whole bunch of modifiers you can sort. You can do all sorts of things, or you can limit if you want to do pagination. So you can modify the data that is returned. So here we have four sections, or we might want to retrieve only the sections that pertain to a particular course. So the one that has for CS 102, for instance, it only returns those 2. Or if you want to narrow it down, that you only want the ones that have a particular number of seats, the one that has seats equal to 34, right? It returns just that one section that has that many seats. Or you can also work with ranges like greater than, less than, and whatnot. So for instance, I want to retrieve only those sections that might have the seats that have the number of seats is greater than 30, and that returns these two sections, right, that belong to this particular course 102. Or you can combine both greater than and less than in a more complex Boolean operation, such as $and. Notice that these operations, right, they all start with $. That's a clue that this is not it's not an attribute, it's not a variable. It's a command that it's handled by the database. So so here's an example of combining these two, and it returns that one document, that one. See if I say pretty. It returns that one document that has a seat that is between 30 and 40. Notice that the syntax has a peculiar syntax. It has the operator followed by its arguments. And the argument here is an array of Boolean expressions, where seats is, again, an operation where you're operating on seats and you're comparing against 30, and this one's comparing against 40. They all have to be true for the whole thing to be true, and returns the documents that meet that criteria. You can do operations such as sort, as a modifier, like pretty, sort, limit. Those are all modifiers. There's a whole family of modifiers. Notice that this is sorting the documents by seats in ascending order, or you can do it in descending order by doing -1. So it's the same elements but in reverse order. This doesn't modify the original order of the documents, and you should not assume any particular order on the original documents. Right? The database is free to give them to you in any particular order. Okay? Only if you want in a particular order, you would have to sort them. Okay? Here's an example of the way it works. You have the original documents. You follow by criteria, and then the modifier then sorts it, limits it, pretties it with the original result set that came before it. And there's any number of selectors that are available. If for a query, for a Boolean expression such as equal, not equal, greater than or equal, in, less than, in or not in, right? To use in arrays, right? And for the Boolean expression, you have and, not, nor, the ones that you would expect. Right? You can also use grouping, just like in SQL, you could do group by, right? You can group by a particular field. Right, and and then you can do all sorts of aggregations on all the other fields that are not part of the group. All right, so we took a look at inserting, retrieving. Let's take a look at updates. Updates allows you to, like the name suggests, update documents that are already there. So, for instance, we might find. We might find from a particular section, retrieve the seats, copy. There we go. Retrieves that one section, and perhaps somebody just joined the course or joined the section, so we might need to update the section and decrement the number of seats. So we can use the .update function that updates that collection. First, it allows you to filter out so that you can identify which document you want to update. Right? This is kind of like the where clause, right? Update a particular table where this field it meets some criteria. So I don't want to update all the records. I want to update a particular record. Right? Which one? The one whose name is O2. Right? And then so this first argument says which record I want to update. The second argument tells you what do you want to do with the document. Right? So this one says that I want to modify, I want to set the particular field, I want to update it to whatever. Right? This argument, the second argument, can be either a set operation, or it could be a document that would replace the original document. Right? So if this instead would have been name 03, you got to be careful here because this might so you have to be careful between this and the other alternative that you might do something like this. Now you got to be careful because in this one, the first one does update the document by actually replacing the old one. Right? The original one might have lots of fields, the name, the seats, right? It might have the faculty who's teaching it. When it was available, whatever, right? It might have 20 fields. So this one replaces that document that had 20 fields, replaces it by a new document that only has now that one field. Okay, so you got to be careful, which is perfectly fine if that's what you want to do. More typically, what we mean is by modifying a particular set of fields. Right? So this is what set allows you to do. In this particular case, you're updating that one field from 23 down to 22. Okay, and you can provide any number of fields that you want to manipulate. So you can rename it too. Right. So here you're manipulating two fields. You're updating the seats and you are renaming it to 002. Okay. Make sense? So careful with this one. Careful. And then whatever was modified, then it's updated. So if I copy that, and now it has 23. If we do that and we query, notice that it went down from 23 down to 22. That's updating. Removing or deleting is simple, right? It's dot remove, and it takes as argument a filter, all right, a pattern matching that says, which record do you want to remove? It says, well, I only want to remove the section whose name is 02, and it'll tell you how many were removed. Okay. Just for reference, there's quite a bit of functions that are available for you to interact with a database. Insert one, insert many, insert. There's a whole bunch of update functions. There's a whole bunch of delete functions, and I encourage you to read through the documentation. There's tons and tons of functions we're not going to cover. We're only going to do the absolute minimum, to be conversant and enough to do the assignment. All right, so let's talk about inheritance.